1935, the Lions win the NFL championship. The Detroit Tigers take the World Series. The Red Wings bring home Lord Stanley's Cup. Joe Louis begins his rise to world domination. This transforms the Motor City into Detroit, City of Champions.
And we are off. Crack of the bat.
How did I know you were going to say that? I read your mind. We've been broadcasting together for so
we need
long,
a starter's pistol.
Yeah.
The starter pistol sound. And then we are on the blocks, ready to go. More of Detroit City of Champions, the podcast. I'm Jamie Flanagan.
Charles Avison.
And thank you for following us, coming along for the ride. Like, subscribe, collect, leave a comment. We truly appreciate all those things that you do. On those, it's just following it really is pretty huge.
Like every comment, every share, every subscription we get, we really appreciate everybody.
Yep.
We love you guys.
Well, tell a friend.
Yeah.
Tell a friend. We reached I didn't put the little thing of over 2,000 downloads.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
No,
so
it's awesome.
Thanks to all those ears on all those different episodes. So truly appreciate it. We're at in the 80s.
Well, we're well aware that we have sort of a niche subject,
Yeah.
and so that's what I mean. Like we really, you see people that have sports shows that have hundreds of thousands of followers and stuff. We know
Right.
we're a little more of a niche subject, and
Sure.
that's what I'm saying. We appreciate all those who come with us on our little niche journey. You know what I mean? I think the story is, we recognize that it's a niche subject, but I actually think that it does have sort of a wider appeal the essence of the story is the greatest season that ever happened has been completely forgotten.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, people, like say we get, I understand that there's like this concept of it's a Detroit sports niche, but I mean, this is I think it does have a little bit broader appeal. We're talking about the foundational era of sports.
But these sports have reached so far out of Detroit.
Joe Louis,
And
that's something that seems to me.
And so we're talking about Olympics and college track and all those things.
And Walter Hagen was the story of golf itself.
Yeah,
the Red Wings were the story of the NHL itself. I guess what I mean is, what I'm saying is that I recognize that we get sort of pigeonholed into the idea that we are just a niche subject,
but it's not.
But I think that,
I
I think so too. I think we do have a broader,
and it has the finest merchandise.
Oh, our merchandise is ridiculous. I need to get
jersey.
some merch.
I am so happy how this hockey jersey turned out.
Yeah,
it says Detroit 35 on the back, and I'm like, I've got 35 on the sleeves.
Dude, that jersey is ridiculous.
Loving those jerseys. And there's all kinds of the logo that Chris helped us develop, and so. You guys, help you, Charles and Chris, develop this the crest.
Yeah, but you're the one that's rocking the heck.
You're
love
the
crap out of that thing, man.
So, yeah, but it's just some great merch, and you can get it
stickers,
cityofchampions.com, and then wearingfunny.com is a place you can pick that stuff up if you dig this. I'm pitching to get this on a beer case.
Yeah,
they had that as you drive down I-75 on the Russell Industrial Complex place, right? There was that big mural of a big mechanical lion type thing, but it was red and it had red wings on it.
Oh, really?
And it had tiger stripes on it, and it was on some beer company picked it up and used it as part of their marketing for a while. Do you know the logo, the mural I'm talking about?
Yeah, I'm not. I haven't seen it. No.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I maybe just haven't noticed it because I drive past there every once in a while.
It's really faded right now. It's really
maybe
gotten faded.
Notice, yeah.
It's gorgeous. It's I'm kind of sad how faded it is. I hope somebody refurbishes it. But I'm hoping that we can get this logo on a case of beer. That'd
be sweet.
So
maybe we talked to the Eastern Market Brewing Company. They did the City of Champions IPA. Maybe they want to do some kind of a thing with them.
This would be gorgeous.
Yeah, they got to. That's the thing. That Eastern Market Brewing Company. Ever go to there? They actually have a City of Champions IPA, and it's freaking amazing.
We should license this to them.
Yeah, you had it that one time, didn't you? I thought you tried it one time.
I don't know.
No,
I'm not sure.
It's great. It's really good.
But like we said, it's a story of 1935. And it was a different time. And your books, you created the trilogy of books, and you sourced just a ton of material and information from the newspapers of the day.
Yeah.
Right. And that was one of your main sources was you went through and just
it's been a lot of our stuff too. We try to get as much primary
microfiche.
Yeah, as much primary information as we can, primary source.
So, but it was a different time, slightly different language. And I remember it came up when we were talking about Jack Johnson and Joe Louis.
Yeah.
And there was some, it's not because you get today and things are so, people are sometimes overly sensitive.
Yeah.
And I'm overly insensitive.
Yeah. Well, we're just presenting the information as it's read off the articles.
There's a couple of articles today, and there's a couple of words in the articles, and we're just going to read them as is. And that is
they
that.
just are. I mean, we've had other times we've said stuff like this before, but it's just the text of the day. We're reading right off, in the attempt to be accurate.
Today, if someone wrote that in the paper today, they'd be like, oh my gosh, that's like very culturally insensitive. That's but it's not an article today. It's an article from 1935, and we're reading it as a historical document.
Yeah.
So we're deep into the story today. How many episodes are we doing?
So Eddie Tolan, we did a sort of a primer episode last, that we just did the episode part 1 of the Eddie Tolan.
Did you know he scored 6 touchdowns in a
high school football game? That's what he always said was his favorite achievement, his favorite accompliment. Despite the fact that he's got like gold medals and
I scored 6 touchdowns.
Wins all. He's like the fastest. They say he was the fastest man alive.
1926 when he was in Cass Tech High School.
Yeah, I know. That's like totally Al Bundy-ish, where he's like, they're like, what was your favorite moment of your entire racing career? And he's like, oh, you'd be surprised to know it wasn't a race at all. It was when I scored 6 touchdowns in a single game.
Right.
Yeah, I know. He's awesome.
Yeah.
So we talked about we did like the sort of primer, like the all like his athletic, everything he did in high school, everything he did at University of Michigan. I mean, he's setting world records like every single year.
Right.
And then he goes to the Olympics. He has this dramatic race. Dramatic race against Ralph Metcalf, where it's like it's the photo finish. It's like it's the first time that video camera is used for like an instant replay, so to speak, to decide. And because they use that instant replay, that image of them both crossed the line at the exact same time, they both set the world record, but he actually won because his chest crossed the line before Ralph Metcalf.
Yeah.
And so that's what's crazy. Like they both finished the same race score, and they both set the world record, but he won. And Ralph Metcalf's like, how does that work?
Well, now you'll see that like in the Olympics, skiers, and they'll kick the tip of their ski, like right when they get to the line, because it's like whenever the line's broken, and sometimes the ski doesn't register unless they tip it out.
Oh, really?
And it comes in, so they get a good, from the tip of their ski to them, lead.
Makes sense.
And it like those because it comes down to those hundredths of a
fraction
second.
of a hundredth. Yeah.
So
we kind of did that primer for Eddie Tolan in part 1. So we're gonna do a part 2 on Eddie Tolan, sort of wrap him up, and then for the next episode, I want to do a special episode on Willis Ward, who is like sort of he wasn't a champion from 1935, but he's like, I promised myself when I did the books that if I ever had a chance to sort of talk about Willis Ward, that we were going to do it, because
he's using up my airtime on your pipe dreams.
Too bad.
So I'm interested. I know if you
Willis Ward is awesome. You're gonna love
so
him.
many elements and side elements to this story that need to be told. That
Willis Ward is a must.
Not been told.
Yeah, Willis Ward.
And that's why we're doing this. I look forward to
Willis Ward. Yeah, Willis Ward. He occupies he's sort of a moment in time, but it's
want to try to get that controversy
moment.
going, get people fired up about the show. If we argue about shit, people will be like, oh my god, you see him going at it.
Oh yeah, we're supposed to be on the same. We're not supposed to be on the same page. Just be like, no, you're wrong. That's ridiculous. We're gonna be doing that. So we're kind of wrapping up Eddie Tolan this week, but there's some kind of critical components to get in, especially since we talked about all the stuff with the high school, the college, the Olympics, but it leaves out what he did in 35 to make him part of the pantheon of champions that won part of the City of Champions season.
Okay,
and so basically, like I could say, we left off last week where he's coming back from the 32 Olympics. He's like he's called the world's fastest human. He's the first black man to be named the world's fastest human. I believe it was the Associated Press that gave out that designation.
Okay.
And so he comes back September 6th. We talked about this last episode. September 6th, 1932. He's greeted at the Michigan Central Station with this official welcoming committee. In September 6, 1932 is named Eddie Tolan Day, declared by the governor of Michigan, the mayor of Detroit. I mean, it's a big, he's a big name. It's a big deal. And but there's this sort of apocryphal story where which reveals sort of like the tone of the rest of this story, which is so he's got all this excitement when he comes back to the Michigan Central Station.
Yeah.
But despite all of the glory he's won, he looks over and sees his half brother collecting garbage in the yard of the Michigan Central Station, and is all the glory and glam he's got at this moment. He wished that he was his brother.
Wow.
Because his brother had a job. Like and then that's where it kind of hits you in the reality of the Great Depression, where he's like, I have been suffering, like I have no money. And he's like, my brother has a job. Like he'd rather have a job than have than he's actually jealous of his brother that his brother's got a job and he doesn't even have one. Wow. So it just reveals here's this, that's, it gives you a brief glimpse into that world, which is like, he just wishes he had a job, let alone these gold medals. So anyways, and so that's, like I say, that sets like the sort of foundation of what's to come, which is that, he's basically in search of work when he gets home from the Olympics. He wants to, there's no endorsements that come his way. Nobody wants to hire him for any type of endorsements. And the other thing too, he graduated from U of M. I don't have the information as far as what he graduated with, but all these different sources say that he wanted to be a physician, but he needed sort of more schooling to do that. Like he had graduated. So it indicates that he had, maybe, he had at least a base layer of studies that were heading towards being a physician, a doctor of some method, but he didn't have the sort of full credentials that would have allowed him to go full Monty into that profession. Right. And so I guess, you say he's kind of like, and then to add to that, he had his family, his mother, like she didn't have a job. Like he needed, he basically he felt a responsibility to help take care of his family. And he needed money to do that. So he needed sort of immediate cash. And so you can, that kind of shows why he's like, I wish I was my brother who had at least had a job, because I could start making money. And so, so as a result, he has, so he at one point over the sort of the going into 1932, like the winter of 32. So he gets an opportunity to work with Bill Bojangles Robinson to do some vaudeville. Okay. To do some vaudeville. All right. Because so it's an interesting little note here that whereas Eddie Tolan was the fastest man, right? So Robinson had this bizarre world record that he said in 1922 he set the world's record for running backwards. And it was said, this is said in numerous places, that it was said that he set the record of running backwards for a 100-yard dash in 13.5 seccons, running backwards. Like that seems like ridiculously fast. Yes. Running backwards. I don't know how that's, but then they say the record stood till 1977. Wow. Somebody else broke that record when the record got broken with a 13.3 seconds. But like,
do we want to bring up
running backwards? Yeah, we can bring it up. All right. And so I just want to kind of give a little bit of visibility as far as who Bill Bojangles Robinson was. Right. He, we've got a picture. He was like, his name is popping up. Well, he's with Joe Louis. We got a picture of him with Joe Louis. We got a picture of him with Shirley Temple. Right. I remember him from. Yeah, he's those movies. Yeah, he's the best known and highest paid African American entertainer in the first half of the 20th century. He's a huge figure at this time. And so he's, anytime there's a celebrity, I was looking for a picture of him with Eddie Tolan, but I didn't see one. Right. But he performed with him. And just a little disclaimer, I actually threw in that picture of him and Shirley Temple because I never miss an opportunity to put a picture. Whenever Shirley Temple comes up for something, I have a picture of Shirley Temple in my book because I added her to my timeline for like all the events of there's like a timeline of stuff that happened in 34 and 35. I did a time. Is what I did was I put in some other sort of cultural references for stuff that was happening at that time. So you get a framework, a context for when these events happened. So like I have like the first Three Stooges short came out in 1934. And then there's, other stuff, like the rise of Adolf Hitler and stuff like this. Like there was the Night of the Long Knives, whatever. There's some political stuff in there too. But anyways, there was like Shirley Temple's first movie came out. And I was like, so I have to put a picture of Shirley Temple, right?
Oh,
because
yeah.
I'm telling you, man, like, I don't know like how macho it is to say this on a sports channel, but like I'm a huge Shirley Temple fan, dude.
No, I love it.
Yeah, Shirley Temple.
Growing up, man, it was like, the Bill Kennedy after school movie there.
Yeah.
He'd play those. Rita Bell's.
Shirley Temple was like, if you've never seen a Shirley Temple movie, like just go check one out because like, dude, it's like watching Pollyanna or something, dude. You just can't help she's just such a fun and happy person. You just feel like you kind of like, especially in these kind of dark world we live in today. Like, like you see Shirley Temple singing and dancing or whatever. And, it's it might brighten up your outlook a little bit or something. I don't know, but I've always liked Shirley Temple. I always thought she was just she's like so young and she was such an incredible dancer and stuff, she was just so cool. So that's the thing is, so that just for future reference for anything going forward, any of our listeners are watching that, if there's ever any opportunity to throw in a picture of Shirley Temple and to say, to kind of profess my sort of admiration or my fandom for being a Shirley Temple fan.
All right.
Rest assured that it will not be missed. That opportunity will not be missed. So there was Bill Robinson was dancing with Shirley Temple. And I was like, okay, she's going to the slide.
All right.
So that's like our signature thing, especially if you're a Shirley Temple fan too, you can appreciate it. So anyways, that's Bill Robinson, Bojangles Robinson. And so I got a little article here. We got just a few, we got 3 different articles to kind of go through. And one of them, cause it fills in a little bit of the gaps. Like I can sit here and just rattle off like, this Eddie Tolan did this and Eddie Tolan did that. But I think it's a little better if we, to read some of the context, the article, just to kind of, a couple of little short articles here. Sure. So this article, This is an article that came out, as we mentioned. So the timeline, of course, September 6, 1932. That's like sort of the pinnacle of Eddie Tolan, glory. That's the official Eddie Tolan day. So September 6, 1932. This article comes out November 28th, 1932. So just a few months after this. And this is a New York Times article. And so this kind of, it talks a little bit, dives in a little bit more about what we were just saying there about, his situation at this moment. So the article header is, and I just want to say this is courtesy. There's a website called SamuelHawley.com. And this is where I sourced this article from. He's got some great stuff on there. He's got some books, some 1930s stuff. All right. And he had this article featured prominently, and, it's a New York Times article. He hunted it down. So I wanted to give him credit. So SamuelHawley.com. So anyways, again, so the title of the article, Tolan, Olympic star, appears in vaudeville to help family and finance study of medicine. So here's the article. So Eddie Tolan, the Michigan Negro youth who won the 100-meter and 200-meter dashes in last summer's Olympics, has been working for the last month as a vaudeville actor. He turned in his amateur card, got a job with a unit under Bill Robinson, and since has been appearing on the stage. He had 2 reasons for doing this. He is virtually the sole support of his mother and several brothers and sisters in Detroit, and he wants to earn enough to enable him to continue his study of medicine. Eddie himself could not be reached yesterday. He lives very quietly up in Harlem, attending to his job. His manager, Morty Forkins, who has an office in the Palace Building, is proud of him. He said the latest holder of the world's fastest human title is studious, appealing, and an attraction on any stage. Mr. Forkins is working on several ideas for Eddie's immediate future. Tolan's contribution to the act is a brief lecture. He comes out and explains how he won the races and describes some of them. Mr. Torkins believes Tolan could make some excellent movie shorts. He explained that Eddie has been very popular in his vaudeville tour. Young people and others interested in athletics naturally consider him a major star. Mr. Forkins explained that Tolan knows that his vaudeville time is perhaps limited. The Olympics will be pretty well forgotten by spring. His idea is to make what he can now to help out his family and then continue his education. It was his mother who managed to send him through the University of Michigan. During much of the time, she was the family's sole support. While he was a student at Michigan, Tolan won races all over the country and abroad, gathering several cabinets of cups and medals. After winning his Olympic titles, he was welcomed home to Detroit with an official reception. So you can see it from the article. A couple of the interesting things here is you can see right here that I was under the assumption that that because they're talking right here that he's about to lose his amateur card. He's not going to be an amateur. And I was under my assumption, like, because the way that it's kind of portrayed when you read a lot of other stuff is that that he was like just did vaudeville and then he got his amateur card stripped by the Michigan Amateur Association, like is almost like it was sort of a Jim Thorpe situation where it was like a surprise to him or something. Yeah. He was like, oh my God, I lost my card. Yeah. Just for doing a couple little vaudeville acts. Well, in this article, I mean, he's talking about it. He's talking about it as though he knew that was what was going to happen. Like, I know if I perform and I act out my role as if I do anything that revolves around making money for what I did in athletics, for track and field, that I'm going to be a professional now. I'm going to be graded as a professional. Yeah. So that's kind of the main takeaway, I think, from this article, is that it talks about, or one of the main takeaways is that he's like, he turned in his amateur card in order to do that. And then also that you see that, he's talking about how his mom was like the sole support of him while he was running. And you can kind of see why he feels obliged to get work to support her now. Yeah. Heck yeah. Yep. So I thought that was it kind of dives a little bit deeper than just kind of spitting it out on a notebook. Yeah. 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 Got to take care of mom. Yep. So it's a good lad for sure. Yep. So that was the first article. And then, this I have another article that sort of like piggybacks on that one. And so this was, this is shortly thereafter. The last one was November 28th, 1932. And this one is January 24th, 1933. Okay. And so, by this point, he's actually found a job, but it's a clerk. He's working as a clerk in this office building. It's like he would never get any kind of superpower job. Like he's found a job now, but it's nothing of any. Fastest man alive. Here, run these papers upstairs. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You think that guy, you don't think that joke somehow made it, that he was subject to some jokes like that at some point. Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, again, so this article came off of that SamuelHawley.com. And, so anyways, this is another New York Times article, January 24th, 1933. And so the article is titled "Tolan Ponders Futility of Fame After His Long Search for a Job." All right. So it says, Olympic sprint champion, once idol of a city and state, now a filing clerk, seems dreams of a career in medicine waning. Dispirited, he vows never to run again. So this is New York Times. Well, it actually says Associated Press, but either way, I'll just fire off into it. So Detroit, January 23rd, for bespectacled little Eddie Tolan, whose short legs swept him to triumph, the sprint king of the 1932 Olympics, of the 1932 Olympiad. The heady wine of victory has turned overnight into vinegar. Eddie Tolan, the speed flash, will never race again. One whole wall in Tolan's room is covered with gold and silver medals. Tables and cases are piled with trophies. The Olympic insignia hangs from a spun wire. Governors and mayors have issued proclamations. Committees have presented scrolls, and orders have extolled Eddie Tolan's sportsmanship and prowess. Michigan had an Eddie Tolan Day by official proclamation. And yet, I don't think anything could induce me to run again, says Tolan, the Negro sprinter whose 100 and 200-meter victories in the Olympic Games brought a mass stadium to its feet. Eddie isn't complaining, but he believes that fame such as he earned is futile. 2 weeks ago, he got a job. He is a filing clerk in a county office here. His lifetime hope and dream of becoming a great physician is waning, for he has been unable to make enough to support himself and his parents, also unemployed for many months, or to complete his education. Between the time Tolan returned to Detroit from Los Angeles to receive a hero's welcome and the day he got the job as a filing clerk, he walked the streets of many cities seeking work. In desperation, he turned in his amateur card and appeared in vaudeville with Bill Robinson, the Negro dancer. His appearance was brief, and he returned to Detroit. On the day that Eddie arrived in Detroit from the Olympic Games, he to be met by a band and a welcoming committee, his half-brother Fred was collecting waste paper in the grass of the park in front of the railroad station. Eddie regarded the half-brother as luckier than I am. He had a job. 4 years of academic education at the University of Michigan, where he rose to stardom in track competition, were completed when Tolan went to the Olympic Games. He hoped at that time that he would continue towards his medical degree. I want so much to see our name head the list when the result is announced, he wrote his mother 4 days before the first heat of the 100-meter race. For I know that if I can win the 2 dash events, our worries will be lessened and some brightness will return to our lives. So he won the 2 big events and his name went around the world, but he didn't get a job. I haven't any complaints, said Eddie. I just don't think I'll ever run again. I'm sticking to my job. But his friends say that Eddie Tolan, the boy who brought back to the United States her sprint championships, most coveted of all track titles, is asking himself these days, what price glory? So you could see, he said in the article, it was out of desperation that he was like, I mean, think about that choice there you got in front of you. You're like, just, you need to make some money. And you're like, I'm going to cash in my amateur card. I can never race in the Olympics again. I can never do any kind of any kind of track and field stuff again.
Right.
It's over. I'm trying to make a couple bucks doing vaudeville, and the vaudeville thing, they for a short time work, I mean, you can see, the kind of desperation that there was. So that's, that's where sort of Eddie's finding himself. This is January 1933. So 33 and sort of 34 go by, and, you can see right there, they're talking about, well, this is the end of his career, right? Well, we wouldn't be talking about him if he didn't have a championship at 35. Right.
So
where did this come from?
Maybe not the end.
Maybe not.
Spoiler
alert. That's well, it's not spoiler, but if we're about to talk about it, you're right. That's like the core of the issue. So it's not necessarily a spoiler alert. We're presaging the future. We're about to, we're alluding to what is about to be spoken of.
Yeah.
Anyways, lo and behold, there's a national sprint. There's a professional sprint championship in Australia.
Oh, okay.
And it's, the way that I read this thing, I'm not sure even if it's around anymore, but I think the way that what was going down was that Australia was looking for something to be like an international, like to make themselves like the spot internationally for something, you know what I mean? Like they wanted to be the best, like the home of, like whereas Britain was the golf home, and I think they're like, we can be the sprint home or something. It's so anyways, they were huge into track and field. I don't know or maybe they just had a natural interest in track and field or something. But in either case, there was a professional sprint championship in Australia in 1935, and it was the World Championship Sprint Championship.
All right.
Okay. So Eddie Tolan goes.
I know just the guy.
Yeah, we know just the guy. So Eddie Tolan. So March 13th, 1935 is the final day for this World Pro Sprint Championship, and I've got the actual article from the day of the race. And so I was fascinated with it because I'd never read this. And again, this is just as the internet moves forward, it's I finished my 3rd book in 2014. So that's an infinity ago. It was 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And so since that time, there's been so much information dump online, people putting out websites, different stuff for their.
Sure.
So this is off of a this is off of a website. So it's a WordPress account. And so this is thefunkyrunner.wordpress.com. So he's probably got all kinds of running, racing, and track and field stuff. So we want to thank Funky Runner, and anybody that would go visit his site would be cool. I really appreciate his documenting this stuff and finding these articles, because this talk about a niche subject. This is about as niche as you get.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating. It's a full article of the 1935 Sprint Championship. It kind of summarizes these races with Eddie Tolan at the center. And I don't have a source for the actual article itself. It doesn't say that, but I do have the writer, and the writer's name is H.O. Balfe, or Balfe, H.O. and then B-A-L-F-E. So H.O. Balfe was the writer for this article. So anyway, I'll read the full article because it tells the story of this is Eddie Tolan's signature claim in 1935 was winning. So he's this is a spoiler. He wins the championship in this race.
Okay.
So so there is a new professional sprint running champion of the world. Eddie Tolan, scion of African Negro stock, long settled in America, has captured the title from the Australian holder Austin Robertson of Melbourne, who won it in 1933 and held it previously in 1930. At the end of this month, Tolan will return to his hometown, Detroit, USA, with 500 pounds in his pocket and the distinction of being the first athlete to hold an Olympic sprint championship, the apex of amateur endeavor, and a world's professional champion at this championship at the same time. The title went to Tolan when, in the presence of a crowd of 20,000 people at the Exhibition Oval, Melbourne, last Wednesday evening, he dashed first across the line in the concluding event of the series, the 220 yards with Robertson, Roberts, and McFarlane in desperate but vain pursuit. In this race, Tolan won by 6 yards after an exhibition of furlong running that has never previously been equaled at a professional sports gathering in Australia. At the first of the 2 championship meetings a week before, Tolan had won the 75 yards dash by a half yard from Austin Robertson and Tom Roberts in 7.5 seconds. The same night, Tolan took the 100-yard test with Robertson and Roberts only inches behind him in the places in 9 3/4 seconds. In each of those events, Tolan's performance was all that might have been expected from an Olympic champion. But for sheer brilliance, today's run in the 220 yards transcended anything he has done during his 3 months in Australia. And so the headline for this: a wonder run. Despite the fact that for 3 days he had been suffering from influenza, Tolan literally made hacks of the field. And the time in which he covered the 220 yards, 21.5 seconds on a rather crude cinder track that was only 3 yards worse than that which he won the 200 meters Olympic championship 3 years ago, on a track described as the fastest on which men have ever run, and equaled the world's record for a professional runner. Running what will be admitted by all who know him to be the greatest race in his splendid career, Robertson won the 130 yards in the last 3 strides from Tom Roberts, who's only inches behind at the tape, with Tolan not a quarter of a yard behind in 3rd place. The time for this event, 6 out of 16 seconds, is equal to 6 1/4 yards better than even time, provides all the evidence necessary of the pace at which the 130 yards was covered. I said in the referee last week that the Australians would show to best advantage over the Sheffield distance, to which they are thoroughly accustomed, and Tolan is not, and so it proved. Tom Roberts was the pacemaker to within 30 yards of the line, and there can be no doubt but that the tremendous effort of Tolan had to make to keep at Roberts' shoulder as he did caused him to falter when the time came for the finishing kick. Roberts was then moving at his fastest, and the crowd was acclaiming him the victor when Robertson came thundering along like a charging warhorse and hurtled through the tape to win magnificently. It was a finish that transported the crowd to the 7th heaven of delight. Okay, this is one of the things I wanted to read about this article. I wasn't going to read this whole thing,
Sure.
except for the fact that it like the way that this once again brings out this 1930s flourish with like the poetic words. And I think this last bit is where the first bit is like there's a bunch of like 62 seconds and all this different stuff is a little bit kind of run on, but so anyways, this is where it gets good, because Tolan basically has to win this final race to win the professional sprint championship, and this is where it's gonna be like the crescendo of amazing was reached this last night. This is the last like sort of like the flourish here. So could Robertson repeat that glorious victor when he met Tolan and the others in the 220 yards? That was the sole question engrossing the attention of the huge assemblage in the hour that elapsed between the 2 races. The air was electric with excitement. The nerves of everybody was tense to their limit. Coolest of all were the men on whose speed and courage anticipation fed. I saw the 4 champions in their dressing rooms half an hour before they were due on the track for the final race of the series. They were resting on their tables and chatted unconcernedly. Tolan chuckled when I asked him what happened in the 130-yard test. It was just too bad, he said. Those fellows were too fast for me. With one more race to be run, Tolan had a total of 11 championship points. Austin Robertson had 8, Tom Roberts 5. And McFarlane, who had finished 4th in the 3 attempts to that stage, had not a point to his credit. Robertson could retain his championship if he won the 220 yards, and Tolan were beaten into 3rd place. But that if was not destined to materialize into fact. The draw for position at the 220 yards start struck the first at Australia's hopes. The 220 yards was run on the cinder track used for motorcycle racing. Careful rolling and watering had packed the surface down firmly, and that track, though rough and somewhat uneven in places, was fast. The contestants ran in lanes and at the start, and as usual, was staggered. Tolan drew the inside running, which was the best possible position for a short, fast-striding sprinter, as he is, on a track that was semicircular. McFarlane was in the number 2 lane, Roberts next, and Robertson on the outside. Well, it was a revelation, the way Tolan jumped into his stride. In his other races, fast starter though he is, the American had nothing on Tom Roberts, and indeed had been led in the early stages. But in the 220 yards, he was flying, right from the gun. At 60 yards, he had gathered up McFarlane and passed him. Roberts was disposed of inside 120 yards, but Robertson was a different proposition. Tearing along on the outside, Robertson was fighting tremendously hard to keep Tolan off, but the speed of the little Negro was steadily wearing down the big Australian, and as they rounded the turn into the straight, Tolan drew level. For a brief space, Robertson and Tolan were level, but the run home was an absolute triumph for Tolan, who went right away from Robertson and won by 6 yards. Roberts, who finished strong, was half a yard behind Robertson, and McFarland, who was last 2 yards further back. So ended the World's Professional Championship Series of 1935. All that remains to be said is that the Marbirnong Running Company achieved the success they richly deserved with 3 remarkably successful meetings, of which aggregate attendance of 50,000 people was proof and to spare of the popularity of professional foot running in Victoria. So that's, Tolan winning the race. But I love, the thing is about is that the final where they're talking about the race being run.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like like they go into detail. He's like, he was fading first, and then he dropped back, and then he came forward, and then he like finished off strong.
I was excited. It was a call and horse race.
I know it is, but he's like, I don't know. It's just funny because like, it's interesting to me how like people that are tuned into a sport can see that, you know what I mean? Cause this is a friggin' this is one of the longest articles we've ever read, really. And he's like describing like there's so much information packed into this thing about this race. And me, who is a total like a novice at this is not the one of my sports I follow or anything, but it's like if I was watching, I'd just be like, watching him run the race. You know what I mean? Like whoever got to the end is what I say. Like I don't know if I could report on it. Like this dude is like, you should have seen it. Like this guy,
the
like
nuances,
the nuances. This guy is just like tuned in, man. Like this guy's like, man, this was the greatest thing. Like it was the great, And they said there's 50,000 people there. That's that's what I'm saying. They're trying. Maybe there's something to it. Maybe Australia was a big, a foot race. Maybe it still is. I'm not sure. I didn't dive that deep into it. So anyway, so there we have it. So Eddie Tolan, 1935 sprint championship. Add that trophy to the mantle of, you got the picture up on screen with Eddie Tolan. So he's wearing the sash. That's the Australian sprint championship sash.
Yeah.
And so, so
Eddie.
So we got the world's fastest man, add that to the, anytime anybody wants to say what season, was that really the greatest season of all time? It's like, okay, well, who do you got to put up against the Tigers, Lions, Red Wings, right? Okay, great. Let's say a city wins 3 championships. Okay. You want to match even up with those? Okay, great. Who are you going to put up against Joe Louis? Right? Who are you going to put up against Garwood? Who are you getting right there? It's already over.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then once you want to keep going on the line, the next one up is, okay, let's say you do somehow miraculously match every one of those. Next up is the world's fastest man, the world's fastest human. Are you willing to, if we needed Eddie Tolan to come up and give us a race, peak Eddie Tolan, 1935 Eddie Tolan, you're going to go, okay, Eddie, we need you to win a race for us. Would you trust the City of Champions mantle, put it in Eddie Tolan's hands? That's what I'm saying. Like, who are you going to put up against Eddie Tolan?
The photos of him, he's not what you envision a sprinter.
Not at all.
He's stockier. He seems
shorter legs. You've never seen a sprinter that short.
Yeah. And he's just it's miraculous how he was able to just pull in those numbers.
Yeah, and he also
those times.
He also wore glasses.
Yeah,
he said they taped the glasses to his head. He ran with those black horn rim glasses on. So he taped them to his head.
I love him.
Yeah, he always had a knee wrap on, so you could always tell in the pictures wherever he's racing is what with the knee wrap on. But I'm just saying, like, okay, you've gotten through the Tigers, Lions, Red Wings. You've matched up against them. You've matched up against Joe Louis. You even have a minor league hockey team win in the same season as your major league team. Great. Right? You somehow found a speedboat racer who could beat Garwood, which would never happen.
No,
never happen.
No.
Right? And then so somehow you got past the big 5, the big sluggers. Somehow you get past them, and now you got to go up against Eddie Tolan.
Yeah.
That's who we're bringing to the table next.
You got to be deep.
You got to have a deep bench of champions to start to even begin. That's what I'm saying when I say this is the greatest season in American sport history. That's that's the mindset. If you're going to say this is not the greatest season in American sport history, And like you, and I'm actually being conservative because you could make the case very easily that this is the greatest season in the history of the world.
Sure.
Because here's the thing, by making that statement, like, do you have a counterpoint? Like, was there a Roman season of some type that had a success of this level?
Or it doesn't even have to be all the same sports, but just the quantity and the quality
exactly.
of performances.
Exactly. So like that's what I'm saying, going down the list, if you like, what other city could match up sport for sport, or not even sport for sport, but like, as you say, just achievement for achievement.
It was the entire British Navy and the whole British Empire trying to beat Garwood. And they couldn't.
The Admiralty, the entire British, exactly. They had the British Navy, the British Admiralty. They had the richest people in the world, dumping money into these airplane heroes, trying to beat Garwood. There was never you're never gonna beat Garwood, man. No. That's what I'm saying. Even if by some miracle they did, the next, like you say, you got Garwood, and then we forgot about Hagen. We got Hagen.
Oh my gosh.
You're like, okay, now it's time for golf. We're like, who you guys got? We're like, we got this guy.
Golf's our sport, not anymore.
Yeah,
we got Walter Hagen.
We'll bring Hagen to the mix,
Yeah.
And then after Hagen, we got freaking Eddie Tolan.
Yeah.
Get up on the blocks against Eddie Tolan, right? Oh. I'm trusting Eddie's gonna pull. They're like, okay, Eddie, we need you. This other city's matched us up sport for sport with every other championship. We need you to win this race. I have a feeling he's pulling it out for us.
I got faith in Eddie.
Me too.
I got faith in Eddie.
That's what it comes down to. That's what we're trying to get at here. Is one of the things we're trying to get at is this idea of the overall goal, which is to say this is the greatest season to ever happen in the history of American sport.
Right.
And like, how do you determine like the greatest of something or other? We're doing it. We're saying like, we're listing off to you what other season could you match up accomplishment for accomplishment in the field of athletics?
No,
none.
Yeah. I mean, where are you gonna, somebody's, well, we got a great highlight team. Well, good for you.
Yeah, good. That's not matching up
with
these.
It.
Yeah, it's not, every one of these things like changed.
Yes.
Changed sport,
the landscape of the sports they were involved with.
Yeah, it's 100%.
So it's
Eddie Tolan did too, because if the next slide we have, the final slide, this is a picture.
So was this Australia run? Was that a professional run?
Yeah, this was a professional. That's the thing.
So that's
because
he did the vaudeville and then doing this, and that took him out of because it's like, why is Jesse Owens Jesse Owens?
Yes,
and why isn't Eddie Tolan Jesse Owens?
That was my original question when I came across him. Like, was he not good enough to face against Jesse Owens? And it's like, it never happened because Jesse Owens was at this time running for Ohio State. And so we got a great picture up here on the screen. This is a famous photo. You see this, if you look it up, you'll see it, quite frequently. I have a different variation of this in my book, but this is 3 of the greatest runners of the 1930s. And in black runners specifically, in this photo we have Eddie Tolan at left. In the center we have Willis Ward, who we're going to do a special episode next week.
Oh, okay, cool.
Or next episode, and then also in Jesse Owens is on the right. And so you can see, like, and so I have this great quote. This quote comes from I've sort of heard this before, but I actually have I'm going to reference it here with Our Detroit. There's an article by George Bulanda from January 7th, 2015. And the title of the article is Unlikely Sprinter. And in this, he refers to because Eddie Tolan died on January 31st, 1967. That's when this. And so in the obituary, which came out in Jet magazine, and this is the guy. I credit him for putting this in here. That's why I got this sort of information. Jesse Owens said, "This is from Jesse Owens. When I was in high school, Eddie and Ralph Metcalf were my idols. Eddie and I later became close friends. I used to live in Detroit, and every time I'd go back, Eddie was one of the first ones I'd look up." So you can see by the picture and also from this article.
Well, and if you look at this picture, you say, all right, in this picture, one of these men is the fastest man alive at this time.
Yeah.
And you probably wouldn't pick Eddie, but at this time he was.
Yeah, exactly. But these guys
still had their chances coming.
And you can see the look on Jesse Owens and also Willis Ward's face.
Admiration.
Yeah, they're looking at him like, man, we're posing with Eddie Tolan.
Yeah.
And so it's, he's got a suit on. He's not even, he doesn't even look like he's even about to run or anything.
Yeah.
they're both looking at him, and this is probably 35. This is probably 34, 30. I mean, it might be maybe 1934, because that's right about when Jesse Owens and them and Willis Ward were running for Ohio State and Michigan.
Right.
But and those two guys are going to race against each other, Willis Ward and Jesse Owens. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, Willis Ward, we're talking about, well, why didn't how come Eddie Tolan doesn't fit into the Jesse Owens story as like a direct competition?
Yeah.
Well, Willis Ward does.
Okay.
Like, Willis Ward was like the U of M's version of, like, he was like U of M's Jesse Owens. Like, he was like racing and beating Jesse Owens. And he's also a football star. So, U of M football, like, he helped them win national championships. I mean, the guy was a stud. And so we're going to get into his story next week. But I just, it's just interesting because it's like, like you're just saying there, how these guys impacted the sports they're in. Whenever you have somebody that's like a hero or somebody to look up to, Jesse Owens even said his own words. So when I was in high school, Eddie and Ralph Metcalf were my idols. They were his idols. That's who we looked up to.
Wow.
And he's got and then the fact that he was like, on the track, he's becoming a track star, and here's Eddie Tolan coming out there to meet him. And hey, I'm Eddie Tolan,
I'd be giddy as a schoolboy.
Yeah, that's so that's what he's saying. Like, there was an idol in his midst. There was a champion in his midst. So, so that, this is Eddie, he was not insignificant. And his name is not sort of as well known as some of these other people that we talk about. It's certainly worth giving him his bringing his name back for the show.
I was so excited to get to this part of the story because, like I said, I know nothing about sports. I have some familiarity with the big three, but then these guys, I know nothing about any of this. And
I didn't know either.
I'm so excited to dive into the rest of these and
yeah. Well, I'm just saying is like,
thanks for sharing Eddie's story today.
Yeah, but here's the thing is that Jamie, I didn't know anything either.
Yeah.
I didn't know nothing about nothing either. There was a point in time when I was when I was a senior at Western in 2005.
Yep.
I came across this subject. I didn't even know what year the Tigers had won their first championship.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know that. And
I constantly say that to people.
But I didn't even know when the Tiger, like we looked it up in this old Detroit Tiger media guide because I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is not something like, and this is, I think that's an important component for people to understand is one of the biggest difficulties I've had with bringing this story back is dealing with, I don't know if the right word is egos or pride,
right,
or whatever, because Detroit sports, a lot of people, this is like a part of their identity.
Oh, yeah.
Like what do you do? What are you interested in? Detroit sports. I'm the biggest Tiger fan. I'm the biggest Lions fan. I'm the biggest Red Wings fan, whatever. Right. I follow every game. I read all the stuff. I'm all this. Right. And then all of a sudden somebody says, did you know that your three favorite teams all won their first championships in the same season, which is the most basic, simple fact of all time in all of sports.
Amazing.
And you don't even have to be a sports fan to understand how incredible that is, or even once that is known for you to, it's an easy fact. It's a great fact. Like, if you're at some random wine party or whatever, you're like, oh, you're somebody that doesn't give a crap about sports, but you heard about this.
Two cities have come close.
Yeah. Oh, there's been several. Yeah.
There's been two where they've been close, where they've been in the playoffs, but they haven't.
We had the Boston get to the 7th game recently. Yeah.
And Florida had.
And then the Patriots were 18-0 going to the Super Bowl, and they lost the Super Bowl with Tom Brady. That was when I was doing my first book. But anyways, but what I'm saying is that one of the most difficult things I believe that I've had to overcome that for this entire project, for getting this thing out there so that it's wider known, like getting newspaper articles written or getting, this story picked up, like whenever there's somebody talking about it, like, on a different, in an event, like on an anniversary day. One of the most difficult obstacles to overcome, I believe, is the basic pride that people have. And they say when somebody that doesn't, when I talk to somebody, I've told the story hundreds of thousands of times. Okay. Sure. And that's not an exaggeration. I've done at least 1,000 art shows, and I tell this story 50 or 100. I tell this story probably 3 times a day, just right now. Yeah. Like, I work in an art store where I sell my books in the store. I tell a story like every day. I tell it every day, and I tell it on the show. And I'm saying it. So when I tell this story to somebody that doesn't really give a crap about sports, or is not really I mean, they might go to games, but they're just not really that into it.
Yeah.
They're the ones that'll sit there and be the most interested and
Yeah.
like, oh my God, this is incredible. That's an incredible story. Right. And they'll like process it, and they'll like, you can see it's stuck in their head, and they're probably going to tell somebody else about it.
Yeah.
But when I talk to somebody that is like, massive sports fan, you can tell, they're wearing all kinds of gear and all this different stuff. Like, I'm not saying every person, because there's a lot of people that are interested in it, but a lot of times you get this resistance. You can feel that it's like closed off. You can see that they're checking out, and they don't even want to talk to you because it threatens this, like, my identity is that I'm the biggest know-it-all in the world of sports.
Yeah.
And I don't need to know, like, if I don't know about it, it probably wasn't that big of a deal. And that's, you almost have to fight against it sometimes. And it's like, that's not the way it's been from the very beginning.
Well, we're fighting the fight, and we're sharing the story. And I couldn't be happier. Willis Ward is part of the story.
Yeah.
And he's Michigan, right? So
U of M.
U of M guy.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get into Willis next time.
But what I'm trying to say to finish up what I'm saying with that concept is that, and I know I've mentioned this on the show before, and it's the idea that unless people, it's impossible to learn. Just the very premise of learning, right? If you're not willing to face the fact that there's something in front of you that you did not know, if you're not willing to say, like, there's something I come across that I did not know, or I have it incorrectly.
Yeah.
If I'm not willing to admit it and accept it and say, well, you know what? I went with information that I knew, previously that I didn't, or I sort of assumed something to be the case that was never the reality. And now I'm faced with superior evidence or superior logic. And now I must, reorient my thinking to now encompass that. That's the only way you can learn. You're not born knowing everything. And, it's like you're saying, like, I don't know nothing about nothing, but you're learning. You know more about City of Champions. You're one of the short list of some of the biggest, most knowledgeable people about the City of Champions season now.
I got the wardrobe for it. That's for damn
sure. You sure do. And what I'm saying is that there was a point where I didn't know a single thing. I didn't know who Eddie Tolan was. And that was a question, like, why didn't Eddie Tolan face off against, if you're so good, why didn't he face off against Jesse Owens? Right? As I'm saying, like, you're not born knowing anything. And just because you are a diehard fan, you don't just absorb all necessary sports information through some kind of a sports osmosis because you are so radiant with sports fandom that you're just going to absorb it.
Well,
you know what I mean?
And the problem with that is that people don't give the story the chance or the respect it deserves because of that.
That's what I'm trying to say. That's been one of the biggest obstacles. And what ends up happening is people a lot of times will look for any reasons to diminish the successes, because they'll be like, well, that was in an age where they had less teams, or that was in an age that was before the Super Bowl. And you're like, yeah, but the Super Bowl is just another name for the NFL championship. It's the same thing. You win the Super Bowl. It's the name of the game. Back then it used to be called the Ed Thorpe Memorial Trophy game, what sounds better, the Super Bowl or the Ed Thorpe Memorial Trophy game?
Right. The first Super Bowl, it was just Super Bowl weekend. Yeah. And so they said, oh, and the first, playoff, or the first, Super Bowl, the AFC facing off against the NFC, was 1967. And I'm like, I go, but the first actual
NFL championship
game
32
was so.
But that's what I'm saying is that people that don't know anything about these eras and don't really want to, aren't bothered to learn, because it takes them out of their sort of comfort zone. And the comfort zone is post World War II. Everything that happens after post World War II is a comfort zone area, because it's the information is widely available. It's constantly cited on games. Like they constantly refer to moments and all this, like there's all kinds of remembrance videos, and people are, there's people that are still alive that remember the events. So it's a comfort zone. But to get out of your comfort zone and to look at the origin story, the real origin and real foundational stories of
that's where the better
all
stories
the teams
lie.
I think they're phenomenal stories of the Great Depression. But I'm saying, like, to get out of that is that pre-World War II stories. This is the foundational era of these teams. And that's what I'm saying is that it's, I just anybody that is listening, that if this is their first time hearing or anything like this, like I say, just, the open mind is to be like, if I ever write a book, like a memoirs of my life, I've thought about the title, like, I was wrong about everything, right?
Yeah.
Because like I want to be proven wrong or Like if I engage in some kind of a debate or whatever, I
Mhm.
want to have superior logic thrown in my face because that's how you learn.
Yep.
That's you learn because you're absorbing something you previously did not know. And that's the battle that's being waged as far as reinserting the story of the City of Champions season into our collective understanding of how Detroit sports became the way that they are.
All right, well, and next week we're gonna visit Willis Ward a little bit more.
I can't wait. I'm looking
All
forward
right.
to him.
Cool. All right. So like, subscribe, leave a comment, all those podcast things and all the podcast places. Appreciate you. DetroitCityOfChampions.com. The book's available there and more information. Wearingfunny.com. Merch is there and on the City of Champions site. So check both of those out. And thanks for being with us. We'll do it again next time. It's Detroit City of Champions, the podcast.